Hey y'all, it's Ash. Today's tutorial was requested by a viewer, B. Davis. Thank you very much for requesting this. And if you have anything that you would like to request, please drop it in the comments. But today we're going to make a Cheshire cat jar. So let's get to it. I always start by rolling out my clay in my Atlas 150 pasta machine on the size 2 thickness to get it ready to cover the jar. No matter what size or shape of jar I'm covering, the process pretty much the same. I cut down the size I need, roll it around the sides, and then I use the sides of my hands and my fingers to roll it up to the top and around the bottom, making sure that it's completely covered. The reason I use this rolling motion is to press out any air bubbles that are trapped in between the clay and the glass. It's important to make sure you get out as many air bubbles as you can, because it can cause the clay to crack when it is baking. So once everything is covered, I just trim off all the excess and smooth the seams around the side and bottom and top, and just have a smooth, clean surface to start sculpting onto. And that tool that I was just using is a silicone tipped brush, which I use a lot. This jar has a metal screw-on lid, so the process is going to be a little different here. I like to cut out a circle of clay and put that on top before I cover it. That just helps it from getting too thin on the edges, that top edge, because sometimes before I did this, I would push the clay around the sides and it would break on the corner of the top. I hope I'm explaining that well. But kind of the same process as other lids. You're just pushing the clay down the sides and then trimming it up around the edge. Now the eyes for this piece are a little different than normal. I printed off these cat eyes in different colors onto some cardstock, and then I adhere my glass cabochons to the eyeballs with some UV resin and let that cure. And then I will cut them out and put them on. I like to do cat eyes this way because I find it very difficult to paint the pupils, like slanted pupils, and get them perfectly symmetrical. And when it comes to eyeballs, I really like them to be symmetrical. So I found these, I think I just found these eyeballs on Google and printed them onto some cardstock. And that's it. They look great. I really like these. So let's move on to the ears now. So I'm just making like some teardrop shape, I don't know, balls? Are they balls if they're teardrop shape? Then I'm going to squish them out, like flatten them down into an ear shape. And I leave the edges just a little bit thicker. I just like the way that looks. That's just a personal preference, I guess. There's no importance to it. Once I have the two ears, I make sure that they're the same size because, again, symmetry. And then I'm going to cut them at an angle because we're putting them onto a round surface. So that will give them, I want them to point upwards instead of outwards. So when I cut them at that angle, it just allows me to put them on that round shaped surface and still have them pointing up. So I'm going to mess with these and trim them down until I get them to the size that I like. Once the ears are placed, I can better determine where the eyes need to be on the face. So I am making the eyelid, the upper lid, and I do that by rolling out a little rope of clay, and I make the ends of it pointier. And I like to give it a little swoosh on the end, like a little cat eye, because it's a cat. And then I make the nose, which is just a little triangle shaped piece. That's for triangle? Yeah, triangle. That's it, just a little triangle. And that also kind of helps me determine where the eyes need to be and make them kind of the same placement. So that's what I'm doing now. Once I am decided that I want them where I want them, I push them into the clay. Now that they're pushed in there, I'll add those upper lids back. Make sure that's where I want the ears and the lid fits okay. And I will blend the ears together using my silicone tipped brush. I love using this tool for blending. I just use it in kind of a rolling motion, pushing the clay around and smoothing the seams out to the rest of the clay. So there's no harsh lines and everything is connected together really well. And there's no danger of it falling off. I'm going to do the other ear off camera, and then we'll come back and finish the eyelids. So before I blend the eyelids to the rest of it, to the head, I make the lower lids. And same kind of concept, I'm just rolling out a little rope of clay and making it pointier on the ends. Once I'm satisfied with those, it's time to blend them, and I'm just going to use a smaller silicone tipped brush than the one that I used on the ears because these are smaller areas to work in, so a smaller brush helps to get in there. And I like to use my pinky to blend the little swoosh at the end because the tools just don't get in there very well. And then we're going to blend the lower lid and just get everything nice and smooth, and I will blend the other eyelids off camera once I finish this thing. Once the eyeballs are done, before I put the nose on, I like to give them some cheek definition. So just made 2 clay pancakes. I'm gonna call them that because they're pancakes, but they're kind of ovular shaped. They're not circle. So yeah, I'm gonna smush those on there, blend out all the edges. And again, I'm using my silicone tipped brush for all of that blending, along with my fingers. And just smooth it all out. Once the cheeks are all blended, I'm going to stick the nose back on. I don't permanently attach it yet. It's just placement so that I can start on that grin. So I use these silicone tipped brushes that have like a flat edge to them, and I'm just going to map out where I want that grin to be. I'm doing the teeth to the grin first before I put the lips on because it's just easier to do it that way. So it's gonna look kind of skeletal at first, just pushing that flat tip into the clay, do the other side, and then I'm gonna put the lips on top of that. So I'm just rolling out another rope of clay. For the top lip, I kind of first measure it out to decide how long it needs to be. But I'm gonna pinch it together in the middle to kind of decide where, because they have like that's what their mouth looks like. I don't know how to explain it, I'm sorry. You can see what it looks like. So yeah, just put that little rope on there, decide where it's gonna be, and then I will press it on, flatten it out a little bit, and blend it all together. And of course, I'm sure you already know, I'm going to use my silicone tipped brush to blend it. Once the top lip is complete, it's on to the bottom lip. Same process, kind of. I rolled out a little rope and made it thinner on the edges like I do with the eyelids. And with the bottom lip, I like to extend it up and give that smile a real nice curve at the end. Does that make sense? You can see what it looks like. He's a Cheshire cat. He's got to have a big wide, loopy kind of looking smile. So let's blend it all together again with the silicone tip brush. When the smile is done and before I put the nose on, I like to start the hair texture around where the nose would be, and I do that in like a circle around, like out from where the nose would be, so that I don't have to go in around the nose and try to do it later. And once I have that textured, I use a little bit of liquid clay to put the nose on, just to make sure it's not going anywhere. And I'm going to continue that fur texture. I tried to slow this down so that you guys could see really well. I'm using my smaller silicone tipped brush, and I am, I don't know how to explain it, brushing it, I guess. And I always move from the nose out, up between the eyes, and down around the cheeks and mouth. And I follow, I mean, if you look at an animal, it's easy to tell the direction of the hair. So I tried to make it look as natural as I can. So it goes up between the eyes, around the top of the eyeballs, or the eye area, and then from the nose out. And then from there, it's just kind of from the top down, like other than the face, like for the back of the cat, we're gonna do just from the top down. Making those little brush strokes, making that hair texture. It's really hard to see the hair texture when the clay is this toned. But when we paint it, it will really pop out. For the ears here, I'm doing from the top, from the base of the ears up. I'm just doing around the edges. I'm not going to do the inside part of the ear, because that's not a really hairy part of the animal. And then for the backs of the ears, I start from the top down, just like I would around the back. And I'm bringing it like down and inward towards the middle of the ear. We'll just keep going. I don't texture the whole thing on camera because it's like the lengthiest part, but I hope that I gave you guys a good idea of how this hair texturing works, the directions that you need to go when making a hair texture, and yeah. So I'm gonna texture the whole thing, and then we're gonna bake it. Oh no, wait, gotta texture the lid first. I texture the lid going from the direction of the face and just going like in one direction from there. Across the top. Just following that. The whole lid I just do in one direction. And I screwed the lid on first so that I knew what direction it needed to be. I hope that makes sense. Then we're gonna bake it. You don't want to bake it with the lid on, because that will cause too much heat to build up inside. But I'm just gonna put it on my cardstock lined pan, bake it in my oven at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes. Once it's baked and completely cooled down, we'll start painting. I like to use this Peel Tech masking fluid on the eyeballs just to make cleanup a little easier, and then that needs to completely dry before we start painting it. So for the paint color, I mixed together this purple iris and fuchsia to get like a pretty pinky purple color. I only painted one coat of this on camera, but I did do 4 coats of paint total of this purple before I started the detail work. So let's finish the painting, and you'll see it turns like a totally different color. But yeah, we'll be back to new details when this is dry. Once those 4 coats of paint are completely dry, I made a wash using distilled water and black paint, and paint that over the teeth so that it will settle into all of those little cracks. And then once the wash is completely dry, I take the smallest paintbrush that I have and very carefully paint every individual little tooth. I did end up painting the teeth 3 times to get them completely opaque. And I just did it one time on camera. And I'm going to clean up the lips because I got white paint all over them. So just painting that over again. And then we're going to dry brush. Dry brushing is a technique that really brings out the texture of a piece. What I did was I mixed some white paint in with the original color that I painted the cat just to lighten it up. And I'm just putting a little bit of paint on my dry paintbrush and then taking most of it back off by kind of like scrubbing my paintbrush onto this little cardboard piece. Just had this in like my scrap stuff. And then I'm just brushing it over the surface. I like to go in the opposite direction that the hair texture is, so that it's just getting paint on those raised surfaces. And that really is going to show that hair texture so much better than if we had left it and not dry brushed it at all. In my experience, dry brushing has a learning curve. You're learning, how to move your paintbrush across the surface, how much paint to get on your paintbrush. So don't get discouraged if the first few times that you dry brush something, it doesn't turn out the way you want it to. I've talked so much that I'm already to sealing the piece. I'm using Sculpey's polymer clay glaze in the satin finish. You might have noticed a little bit ago, I also painted the nose a darker purple while I was chatting about dry brushing. And after the piece had completely dried, that is when I'm putting this final coat on. This will protect your paint and just finish it all off. And I clean it all up. Look at those eyeballs popping against the purple. So nice. Yeah, I'm just cleaning all that extra paint that doesn't belong there. Off the eyeballs, off of the lip of the glass jar. I cleaned it off the lid. I just used a little bit of wet tissue to get it all scrubbed up. And that's it. And here's the finished product. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. If you have a suggestion for the next one, drop it in the comments. And know that I appreciate you all so much.